Hey friends, it's Simon Hurley and welcome to another video. Today we're taking a look at these new Betterpress registration plates. These are supposed to be kind of game-changing for the Betterpress because you can use several different plates to create multicolored designs on your card making projects, which looks really cool in the end. So you're going to be seeing my first time walking through this. We'll see if it's easy and how the results turn out. Now remember, everything that I use in today's video will be listed and linked down below, and using those links helps support me, so I really appreciate it. Now without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so they have two of these new registration plates sets. I really like these because you can see like the sentiments in a different color as well as the florals, and then the leaves are in a different color from that. So they're all different plates and there's different instructions inside on how to get the registration correctly so that they turn out with different colors. So super cool, and then this one's got a couple different plates as well as sentiments to work alongside it. So I'm excited to test these out. It's really cool when companies kind of innovate on their ideas, and I think this is gonna be a big innovation in the Betterpress space. So let's open this and see what comes inside. Okay, so inside of here you get all the different plates. So those leaves are gonna be separate from the florals as well as the sentiments are separate. And then you get this sheet of folded cardstock, which I'm gonna guess is what you place down on the Betterpress in order to line things up because it has all of the outlines on here. Hey friends, it's Future Simon editing this video, and I checked in with the Spellbinders team because I wasn't quite sure about the guide being that really thin printer paper, but the products that they sent me were pre-production samples, so when you guys get your products, they will actually be a Mylar plastic sheet, so they'll be a lot more durable and easy to clean off, so your guides will hold up over time as you use them, which is great. All right, now back to the video. And then you also get the instructions in case you're doing this alone, but hopefully with my video today, you'll kind of be able to follow along with what I do and see if it works for you. I'm gonna start off by taking this guide and just trimming it down a little bit. I think that's gonna make it just slightly easier to use on the Betterpress. And I just cut it right around those red lines, which makes it pretty easy. All right, then I'm going to bring in my Betterpress platform, lift off that top plastic piece. All right, then I'll just place this piece of cardstock down and just evenly line it up on all sides from the center, so that looks good. Then I'll grab a little bit of mint tape. I highly recommend mint tape for projects like these. It's my favorite tape because it doesn't rip your cardstock at all, so that's why I tend to use it. So I'll just tape it on all four edges to make sure that it stays nice and in place while we do our alignments. All right, so now aligning all these up should be pretty easy. So I'm gonna start off with this large section of leaves here, and you can see that this has the black outline. You can sort of see that large shape there. So all we need to do is just place it down onto our Betterpress base, and it'll magnet into place really easy since this base is magnetic, and it holds it in place really quite nicely so it's not going to move on the surface. All right, then let's get our cardstock ready. I'm going to use the cotton card panels from the Betterpress line. This is that porcelain color, so it's really nice and white. And if you guys haven't seen these, it's cotton card panels. It almost feels like handmade paper. It's really amazing, and it gives a really super deep impression when you're doing your Betterpress. Of course, you could use regular cardstock, but this will just give you a deeper impression since it has more fibers and thickness that it can push down into. So I'll just take this, I'm going to line it up on the top lid here with those A2 lines, and then again, I'll pull back in my mint tape, and I'm going to tape right around the edges to hold it in place. Now I want to recommend that you guys tape it in the edges. I've seen some people kind of loop it in the back and tape it underneath right in the center, which is a good idea in theory, but with the pressure of the plates, that'll kind of make it a little bit weird. So you always want to tape at the edges where it's not going to be affected. All right, and Spellbinders also has recently come out with a couple of new Betterpress inks. Of course, you can try other inks that you have as well, but I really do like that these are minis, and they're a thicker oil-based ink, so they don't bead up as much on these plates, which is really nice. And I'm gonna use that leaf color in there. I think that's gonna be perfect. And then we're going to ink this down. And now when I ink with these ink pads, instead of just lightly tapping, you won't get as great of coverage. I like to kind of tap with a firm pressure and kind of move it back and forth like this, almost with a swiping motion. And that's gonna give you the best coverage with these ink pads. Now these ink pads, fun fact, are actually manufactured for Spellbinders by Ranger. So you get a really super high quality ink. I love Ranger's ink pads. And it's a similar formulation to Archival, but it's just a little bit thicker. So that's what I like about these inks. They aren't gonna bead up on top of these metal plates, and they'll give you a really great impression because that oil makes them nice and thick, and it'll stay on top of here really great. But of course, if you have some archival inks on hand, try those as well. They'll work similarly. And if you have a whole color collection of them already, that's great. So then I'm going to grab this top plate, flip it over, and magnet it down. And then I'll bring in my platinum die cutting machine, and we'll place the Betterpress right inside. No extra plates, just this, and then we'll run it right through. Super easily. I'm super excited to see this. So we'll lift it off the surface. Oh my gosh, that is stunning. It always looks amazing. And it's got that super deeply impressed look to it. I absolutely love all that texture in there. I've done this quite a few times and it's still like amazing every time I pull this Betterpress out. All right, so then I can just go in here and lift the plate off the surface with a magnet. This magnetic mat is really strong, so you're gonna need a little magnet to kind of get it up. Then I'll set this plate off to the side. I'll show you how to clean it in just a second, but let's move on to the next florals. And I love that they made these types of flowers separate from these other flowers here, so you can even do them in separate colors if you want to, and make it more colorful, or you can do them all in the same color. But it's cool how many layers they were able to add. So I'll take these larger florals, you can see that green shape in the center looks exactly like this. So I'll just lay it right down onto the surface. All right, now here we're gonna do a little mix of colors. I'm gonna start off with Azalea, which is the lighter ink color. I'm going to just ink these up. Again, kind of press it down and then do that little bit of a swiping, or kind of like moving back and forth, a little shimmy, and that'll get you a really great coverage on this. And then after that, to add a little bit of shading, I'm gonna go in with Strawberry, which is just a little bit of a darker berry color, and just add it to kind of the base of these florals. Just using the little edge of the ink pad. That's why I love these little mini ink pads, because you're able to sort of just get into tiny little areas that you wouldn't be able to with a large pad. The small size is perfect for these little Betterpress plates. Then we can go right back in. This is in the exact same spot since we've got everything taped into place. Place it down, and again, we will run it right through. And this time, we're gonna do a little bit of awkward Betterpressing. We stare each other in the eyes as we run this through the machine. All right, super easy, and we've got our second layer done. Oh my gosh. It is so cool that it's kind of exactly in that spot. It lines up perfectly with those florals. The registration marks worked perfectly, and it was super easy to do too. All right, then we'll go in here, lift that up with our magnet, and then we've got a couple of these littler flowers as well. Peel those guys off. And we got a couple sentiments in here, sending birthday wishes, thanks for everything, and hello from me to you. I think I'm gonna do hello from me to you. I like that sentiment. And so I also wanted to share, you can line several things up at once. So I'm gonna do the sentiment right at the bottom here. Hello from me to you. And that lines up perfectly. And then we can also do these small little flowers at once because they're far enough away from the sentiment that we can ink them up in a separate color if we want to still. So we'll just go in here and sort of puzzle these guys in. And also each different shape that you can make a different color is colored in a different one. So this is purple, that bottom one down there is red. So you know too, like which layer will be what. I think they did a really good job making it not super confusing. And still, even though they're a lot smaller, so there's less magnet there, they're still not moving on me all around the surface, which I really like. That base is super strong magnetic. And then I think for the sentiment, I'm gonna go in with a little bit of bark, which is this brown color. I've been liking browns as a neutral, especially when you're using a lot of like earth tones for florals. I think that browns can be kind of a nice neutral instead of black. It's not as harsh. All we need to do is magnet it down, and then we can run it right through our machine. And I'm always surprised too with the Betterpress. It is super easy to run through. It's like a lot less pressure than die cutting. You almost feel like it's not getting pressure at all, but it still gives a beautiful impression. And then this should complete our image, so I'm excited to see it. It's gorgeous, and like, I'm just so shocked. I guess I shouldn't be because that guide is really helpful, but just the way that it lines up with those images so seamlessly without any shifting is incredible. And I love that it completes the image with all different types of colors in there. That's beautiful. All right, then I'll just carefully peel off the mint tape from our cotton cardstock. You still want to be gentle with it because the cotton cardstock has a lot more like fibers to it, I guess, but it still comes off perfectly with no ripping. And I absolutely love how stunning that design is. All right, now let's talk about cleaning a little bit, since I know that's something that everybody will want to know. You can either use rubbing alcohol or a stamp cleaner. In this case, since it's similar to archival ink, you want a solvent-based cleaner, so this archival ink cleaner from Ranger is going to be a really great option to remove any of that archival-based ink. Now, I'm not sure if Spellbinders necessarily recommends this, so do it at your own risk, because I'm not sure if these lines will come off, but in all the time that I've been cleaning this off, no lines have been removed from this base. But I just wouldn't scrub. If something's not coming off, don't try to force it off and don't really go in there and scrub. Some of it might get a little bit stained, and that's okay because it's a tool. So with the archival ink cleaner, I really like this one because it's got a little foam dauber at the top. So you can just go in and wipe on some spots that have a lot of ink there, kind of let it sit for a second, and then go in with a cloth or a paper towel and just wipe that off. And for the most part, lots of the ink will come off. But like I said, don't force it. There's still a little bit of a stain up here. There's some stains from black inks that I've used in the past. I don't force it, just any of the excess residue I try to get off. And then when it comes to your Betterpress plates, to clean these off, I would do the exact same thing. Just go in with your archival ink cleaner on a dauber here, gently swipe it across the surface, let it sit for a second, and then you can go in and easily wipe that off, and it should clean the Betterpress plates really quite easily. I'm not sure if you can see it, there's a little tiny bit of green staining. There always will be staining with some types of inks, especially when they're super permanent like this, but for the most part, it's very clean and it won't transfer on the next project that you do. All right, I really loved that process, so let's bring on the next one here. I'm gonna go in with this set, which is called Thank You Blooms. I love how this one is super modern, bold with that big sentiment across the center. I really like this design a lot, and there's a lot of little floral pieces in here. So we'll pull this out. So then again, I'll just align the guide right in the center of the Betterpress and use a little bit of mint tape to hold it into place. All right, that's not sticking. Okay, so I wanted to share this. I'm having a little trouble sticking down my tape to the Betterpress base here, and it's because there's that archival ink cleaner, a little bit of that residue still on there. So to clean that off and make sure that things are still nice and sticky with your tape, you just want to go in with a little bit of water after you're done cleaning and just kind of wipe it off with a little bit of water so that my tape will be nice and sticky again. I really love that there's grid lines on the base. It makes things super easy to line up, and yeah, there we go. Now the tape is nice and sticky. It just doesn't want to stick to like oils or inks, so that totally makes sense. And then we'll just tape it right down. I got tape all over my fingers here, but I wanted to share with the cotton card panels, they also have bisque, which is kind of an off-white color, and I believe this one's called pebble, which is a light gray color. But for this card, I'm still gonna use the porcelain because I want that nice bright white color, but I did want to point out that there is other options when it comes to this cardstock. And I just love how high quality it is to get great results with your Betterpress. All right, and then let's get started better pressing. So I'll take these two large florals first, because that is one color on here. So you know that those two can be the same. Now, if you want to do these florals in different colors, you totally can, but I like that they kind of matched with how the packaging looks there. And then if you want to know exactly like how to find different shapes, look for like certain areas that are pretty obvious. So here you can see that little hump. That's exactly right there, so that's how I'm gonna know that it sticks down right like that, and it just goes in. And then same thing down here, there's that little opening there, which is on this plate, so that's how I knew that it was this one. All right, for this we're gonna do some more shading. I'm gonna use a little bit of Tuscan and then strawberry. So I'll go in here with the Tuscan first. You always kind of want to start off with the lightest color. And I'm just going to ink this up, again, by pounding it down, and then giving that little twisty kind of shimmy motion to get lots of color down onto there. And this is such a pretty color, I love this one. And then I'll go in with some strawberry as well. And I'm just going to sort of do like the centers of the flowers with a little bit of strawberry. And again, that's where these ink pads are super helpful because you can just kind of go on the edge with the corner of the ink pad and ink up a small area. Now don't be too worried about the ink kind of transferring to one another. That's why we started off with the lightest color first so that we get less of that color transfer. And also if you are super worried about it, you can always go off to the side. Make sure that any of that yellow is out of there, and then you'll be good to go. But I assure you, you're not really ruining an ink pad, especially when it's a felt-based ink pad like this. There might just be a little bit of extra ink on the top surface, but it's no big deal. Then I'm going to take this, flip it on. We'll just awkwardly run it right through our die cutting machine. Little staring contest. All right, then we'll lift this off. Oh my gosh, that never gets old. And the blending in the center there is crazy. I love it. It gives kind of that super realistic look. I love all those little tiny dots and details in there. And then of course, the impressed detail into it, where you get all that texture, is insane. Then we'll lift these guys off. And then we're going to go in with the other florals. And then again, just look for those shapes that are pretty evident. So up here, I'm gonna go in, and that's the blue one. And then there's another blue mark over here, so that's how I know that this flower lines up with that. All right, and then if you want to, you can always test color combos before you go down too. So this is what apricot looks like. It's kind of a nice light peachy color. Here's clay. Ooh, so that's a lot darker, okay. Good thing we didn't do both of those, because I don't know if they really look great together. I like that wild berry, but that's super bright. What about azalea again? All right, so we're gonna do some azalea and strawberry again. So we'll start off with azalea, which is that nice light pink. And then we'll go in with a little bit of strawberry again, which is what we use to shade the center, but it'll look a little bit different on top of the pink. And again, just use the edge to sort of like tap it into the center of those florals. I think that blending these inks gives such a cool effect. So then I'm going to lay that on top, magnet it down, and then run it right through the die cutting machine super easily. I actually love the color combo, that kind of pinkish, reddish color with the more yellow and oranges. It looks beautiful. Okay, super cool. We'll lift these off with our magnet. You can see it gets a lot faster when I get a little bit more used to it and I'm not talking as much. I feel like I could do this pretty quick. And then we'll go in with the leaves next. This one's got more of a rounded edge at the bottom. And you do want to make sure it's pretty precisely aligned. And then this one has got more pointed edge. And we'll go in with this leaf color. place it down. Okay, now it's really starting to come together with those leaves. And then this huge thank you sentiment is just beautiful. I love these sort of like big, bold sentiments that come out of florals. I think that's gorgeous. So I'll line that right up in the center. All right, so I'm gonna stick with just the browns because like I said, I like that as a neutral with florals especially. So I'm gonna start off with tawny brown, which is a little bit lighter. And I'm going to again show you another fun kind of shading technique, because when it comes to stamping and like better pressing, shading is one of my favorite things to do, to take just a more one-dimensional thing and make it kind of 3D. So I'll ink up the whole sentiment first, then we'll go in with a little bit of bark, which is this darker brown. And I'm just going to, again, take that bottom edge of the mini ink pad and sort of like roll it up from the bottom of the word. So not the whole thing in the center, I'm just going up from the bottom edge of the thank. And I'm just going to start kind of rolling up that ink onto the bottom half to kind of blend it upwards and create a darker shadow at the bottom of the lettering. And then you want to kind of tap it out lightly, just to make sure that it blends and that there's not a harsh transition. And then same thing at the bottom of the U. We'll add a little bit of shading here. I'm excited to test it out. So now let's flip it over, line it up. And also try not to run it back through your machine. I know that sometimes we do that for die cutting, but you don't want it to like reach the cardstock twice because it might shift a little bit. So I would just run it once through and then you're good to check it out. All right, I'm so excited. A little drum roll, please. I'm excited to see how this sentiment turned out with that shading. Oh, that's gorgeous. I love how that turned out. So I hope you guys can tell it's always harder to capture things on camera, but it's just a little bit darker on the bottom there and it sort of fades up into that lighter brown. Of course, you could do it with two different tones completely, but I like the two different shades of brown. It really adds a little bit more of life and dimension to this and makes it look kind of 3D with that sentiment. And then we'll peel off our tape and do a little bit of cleaning. All right, this is me from the future. As I was filming, I realized I think I had this taped up a little bit further, and that is why this got a little bit off-centered. So I don't think that it's the problem of the guide. It was actually just me. I'm pretty sure I taped it one up like that, and so that's why it turned out a little off-centered. No big deal though, I'm gonna end up cutting this down anyway for my card. All right, and then to put this one together, I'm going to fussy cut this out quickly. It's pretty easy to do, just leaving a little bit of a white border all the way around it. And I leave the white border because then I'm able to skip some of the spaces and not have to go into all the tiny little detail. So it'll end up saving me quite a bit of time as I go in and fussy cut this out. See, like in this area, you might be inclined to go all the way into there, but I'm not going to. And because I'm leaving that white border anyways, it looks like I'm just able to kind of round the corner on some of those areas and just leave them as part of it. So that's why I find it helpful to leave that little white border, because you don't have to be perfect then. Right, and for this card to match the browns that I was using, I'm going to go in with a little bit of craft cardstock. I love this. It's such a great neutral color. And then to add tons of texture and detail to this background, I'm gonna go in using the handwritten background stamp. I love this one because you can't necessarily read the writing in it, but it just adds tons of texture to it and is such a great background when you wanna add a little something, but you don't want it to take over. So to stamp this out, I'm using a little bit of Weeping Willow for a nice dark brown tone-on-tone effect on the craft cardstock. I'm just gonna go in here and ink up the background stamp all over. And then I'm going to take the craft card base, flip it right over, and stamp it down into the text. Now when I'm stamping background stamps, I like to take a little pressure tool and just go on the back surface of the cardstock and add pressure all over to make sure that everything transfers really nicely and then we get a nice clean impression. And there we go. I love how that looks. It really adds so much texture to it. And I think this kind of cursive font looks really great for elegant and floral cards like we're doing today. And then I'll just line that up in the center and place it down on some foam tape to pop it off the card. I am so loving how this card turned out with that really cool registration process. You get all of those beautiful colors on your image. I love that the different clusters of florals are different colors. There's lots of color going all throughout this, and it's something that I didn't think would be possible with Betterpress, but it turned out so beautiful in the end. And then of course, just finishing off with that craft background and the text background stamp works really beautifully on this. All right, now I know there are gonna be some questions on what else can you sort of do with these plates, right? So one thing with these is that, yes, they are meant for layering, and for most of these images in here, you're really only going to be able to use it as a layering set, because you can't really pull these flowers apart out from the set because they've got all these openings in it that make room for the sentiment, so it would look weird if you just used them by themselves. I guess there are some florals, like this one down here, that isn't affected by the word, that you could use alone on a card, sort of cut those little images out and maybe pop them up by themselves. But there's usually some plates in these sets that you can totally use individually, like that thank you isn't affected by anything. I love that plate. Like that in itself is another great way to just use a sentiment that's in the set. So that sentiment can be used completely individually. It's a really nice focal point sentiment that you can use on any sort of card in the future. And then same thing in this set. However, in this one, you could use like some more of these flowers individually because there's not really any sentiment in the center that's affecting them all. So you could use them kind of separately if you want to. But then of course, all of these 3 different sentiments, you could use those individually on any card. So I like the sort of fact that you're able to pair them all together if you want to, or separate just a few things from this set, and you're able to use those little things individually. All right, now I wanted to share another idea using these plates. Although it sort of ruins the idea of using several colors on this as a registration plate, I still wanted to show it because it makes these more usable in your project if you don't want to use a ton of colors on them. And I'll show you just how quick I can go as we're creating it. All right, so I'm using this set again. I'm gonna start off with the largest flowers right onto those red spots. And then for this whole image, I'm just gonna use the Betterpress black ink to get a really nice, crisp, and jet black stamped impression. Flip this over. All right, beautiful as always, a super crisp jet black impression. Then next we'll use these smaller florals. Gonna line them up on these blue spots. Use the black ink pad to ink these up super easily. All right, second layer is complete. Perfect. All right, and then I'll go last but not least in with the sentiment. And you know what? I still do want a little bit of pizzazz with the different colors. So I'm gonna go in using Tuscan and Strawberry and do that same sort of blending and shading effect that we did because I thought that was just gorgeous with those browns. So I'm gonna go in here, ink this up, and then we'll go in with Strawberry. And again, use that bottom edge to just go in and blend that red color up from the bottom. That's gonna look beautiful. And then once you're done blending, sort of tap out lightly, and that'll smooth the colors in between each other. I think that's gonna look super cool, so we'll place it down. All right, that is just stunning. I love the shading and it really makes that sentiment stand out in the center. So we did end up actually using the registration plates anyways this time by doing the rest of the image in black and white and then making that sentiment pop with tons of color. All right, and leave it to me to mess this up again. I keep thinking that that bold line is where I should line it up, but that's not the center. So you can see there's 3 boxes down here and 2 up here. So that's why, again, it's a little off center on my cardstock. It's not the guide's fault, it's totally me. All right, then I wanna do a little bit of coloring. So I'm gonna go in with some colors of my Simon Hurley Create ink pads and smoosh them down onto my craft sheet so that we can do a little bit of watercoloring. So I'm just creating a little palette of color here. Then I'll spray down a little bit of water onto my surface. I do that instead of a cup of water because I know that I'm gonna knock the cup of water over, so this makes it a little bit easier for me. It's more spill proof. Gosh, I'm like a little toddler. Then I'm gonna go into that water with a normal paintbrush and I'm just gonna go right onto the surface of my cardstock and start doing some watercoloring. Now, whenever I do watercoloring, I always start off with a layer of water first to sort of prepare the cardstock to take the ink, and it'll help the colors blend a little bit more too. If you don't do the layer of water, the colors tend to sink right in and not be able to move at all. And then we can go in with a little bit of color. So I'm gonna start off with a little bit of triple berry, which is this nice purple color. I'll water it down for the first layer to get a nice wash of color across the surface. And you can see it's doing a great job at blending and not just sinking right into the cardstock. And then you can always go in with that same color. So I'm gonna go back in with triple berry, a little bit less water this time, and it'll give you a more concentrated color. So you can go in and sort of add some shading to the image like that and get a much more saturated, intense version. Just add a little shading around these petals. I tend to do some shading in the center of the petals to make it a little bit darker. Now, if you wanna go even darker, you can grab another shade of purple. Here I'm gonna use a little bit of Crown Me and just add that right to the center to darken it up even more and make the contrast more intense. And another thing that I love about these Betterpress inks that we use is they are waterproof. So you can see that these black lines aren't moving at all as we're watercoloring, which is super nice. So you're able to do the designs with the Betterpress, and then if you want to, you can add more color with watercolors or inks afterwards. That to me is super helpful because I love to watercolor images with ink pads like this. And so to have an ink that you're printing with that won't bleed when you do your watercoloring afterwards is incredibly helpful. All right, so because I aligned this wrong again, I'm just gonna go in with my Fiskars Spring Assist scissors and cut right around this. I'm just gonna leave a little bit of a white border all the way around the image, but I actually probably would have done this anyways because I want to add this to a more colorful and detailed background to finish off the card. I love my Fiskars Spring Assist scissors for this because they're really small and able to get into these little details as we're cutting them out. And they also have this Spring Assist feature to it. That way your hands won't get tired as you're fussy cutting and it opens back up for you so you don't get any kind of jagged cuts as you're trying to focus on opening up your scissors. And for those reasons, I've just found them super helpful for fussy cutting. and it'll make this quick and easy to cut out. To match that deeper orange color on the sentiment, I'm going to use a colored card base. This is colored cardstock from GAMECHANGING called Tomato Soup, and I'll go in and score it on my scoreboard at 5.5 inches and fold it over using my Teflon bone folder. All right, then I want to add some simple texture using stenciling, so I'm just going to lay this right down into my stamp wheel, simply for the sticky mat. I've been really loving that sticky mat for stenciling. And then I'm going to go in with the polka dot assortment stencil. This one is absolutely amazing because it has 4 different size polka dots for creating backgrounds. And I want one of the smaller polka dots, so I think I'm gonna use the second smallest one here. I think that's the perfect size. When you're using your Simon Hurley Create stencils on a sticky mat like this, there's a coating on this mat side. You don't want to peel up the coating, so I'm going to stick the glossy side facing down towards the sticky mat and stick it down into place and just press it right into place. And then that sticky mat holds it so it won't move while we're doing our blending. Now for the blending on this tomato soup, I think that a red color is going to really stand out nicely. So I'm gonna use a little bit of bee sting. I've placed that in my ink stand to hold it in place. And I'm gonna use one of these large alternate blending brushes to just simply and easily blend over top of this background. I love these large brushes because it covers the surface area so quickly. So we're able to just blend through the stencil really quite easily across the surface. Then we'll lift it up and see how those polka dots look. Oh, that is just perfect. That's exactly what I was envisioning. And this is how we had it. And I'm just going to shift it over in place one time. And you just want to make sure that you're perfectly aligning it in the center of where those other dots were. And then we'll place it down onto our sticky mat again. And then we'll go back in and blend over one more time. And so this is going to put polka dots in between the other ones and make it more of a filled in pattern. So you could leave it more sparse, or you could fill it in. It's totally up to you, and that's what I love about these polka dot stencils, is you have the full control and creativity. So when we lift this off, then we have a full kind of grid of polka dots here. All right, then we'll lift this off of our sticky mat, and to clean this off, my inks clean off really easily, so I'm just gonna spray down a little bit of water, and they'll wipe off perfectly for the next time you want to use your sticky mat. Then I'll go in and lay down some foam tape from my big 3M roll to just add a little bit of dimension behind the image. All right, and then I'll just place that right down onto the front and center of that card. I love how this card turned out with that beautiful polka dot background that's tone on tone, but it really adds lots of texture and color to this. And then of course, using the press plates with all black and making that sentiment stand out beautifully. It's a great way to use these press plates in a different way and get more use out of them, and this just looks so stunning. All right, so that's a look at the new registration press plates for the Betterpress. I'm so excited about this. I think it really opens a whole new world of possibilities for designs when it comes to Betterpress. It was kind of lacking in the first place. I was wondering if you were going to be able to do several different colors on one image, and this really brings that whole concept to life in a whole new way that I wasn't expecting. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below if you guys will be checking these out, and let me know which card was your favorite as well. I always love chatting with you guys down there. Remember, everything that I used in today's video is listed and linked down below if you want to check it out, and using those links helps support me, so I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.